name is Tatum the Director, and today I'm going to be showing you guys how to edit in Lightroom. Well, edit Instagram photos in Lightroom. I love Lightroom. It is very color oriented, and I tend to love my photos being very saturated with very blue and orange highlights. So Lightroom gives me the opportunity to kind of mess with those colors and make sure they're the way I want them to be. Let's dive right in, and if you want to see any of my work, check out on my Instagram, Tatum the Director. Let's get started, shall we? So firstly, what you're going to want to do is make a folder of all the photos you want to edit. Let's say you did a photo shoot. I usually just put all of my photos that I took from the photo shoot in there. So if there's a photo you don't think that has potential, I still kind of edit with it a little bit to see if it does. And I'm like, no, this sucks. I move on. But I tend to download it all as a folder. So you'll see Folders tab and then press the plus and then Add Folder. So after you download all your photos, you're going to see them all pop up here. And then you're going to want to pick a photo you want to edit. I usually start off with one I don't like the most because usually the first one always is trash. And then you get into comfortable editing. Especially if you're editing somebody new, it's a lot harder. Fun fact, your photos will all be shit until they're just always going to be shit until you put them in post. You're lying if you took a good photo without editing it. Sorry. Like, it's just true. I picked this photo because I love this photo. I love the way his eye is lit where the rest of his face isn't. It's weird shadows, which I always love. As well as, I think this is the most Instagram mobile photo in this shoot. When you start off in Lightroom, the best way to do is go auto, then go from there. Like, I'm obviously not going to keep the filter this way because I hate it. But it's a good way to find somewhat of a structure and a skeleton, and it doesn't make moving all of it intimidating. After putting in auto, I immediately go to color. And this is the reason why I do this is because I'll usually go on color, mess with my blue primaries, and then go back and mess with all the shadows and stuff like that that's based on those colors. So mostly blue primary, essentially what it is, it's kind of the hue of the color. So let's say if I move this blue primary this way, everything kind of turns, you know, blue and green. As for if you move it this way, it's my colors. It is a very teal with a reddish orange. I'm going to pull that back a bit. And I tend not to like the way oranges look with this, so I tend to go in red primaries and make it, so instead of making it really, really like the way it looks now, make it a little more of a yellow tint if you can't see the change, right? Like this tint makes it more pink. And this is where if you get those like traveling photos of those girls with like the really white backgrounds and like the colors of the pink pop up, usually it's because they made the hue, or the photographer made the hue more like this. I love messing with the green primaries too because it messes with kind of the yellows. I kind of like making the green primaries more on the right side, which usually, it's so beautiful. Now the colors I feel set with, I will perfect them a little bit later, but having kind of a underground statement of this is what I want it to look like is really helpful in my mind to get somewhat of an idea of where I want to go with the photo, and then messing with the very small details, which is now. This right now is postable. You could straight up just post this. I would never. So what I noticed on Instagram is the brighter, lighter colors tend to be more popular with more of the influencers and stuff like that, where the darker exposures tend to be more popular with the generalized population of Instagram. So I always tend to go a little bit brighter and then less contrast. That's what I've noticed is kind of the thing, is so kind of making a little bit brighter, a little less contrast. And that way it also kind of smooths everything out and it's not too heavy. It just seems light, which I think is really cool. And I love that's a trend because I dig it. And next you kind of go into everything else. So highlights, as you could tell, is everything that's highlighted. If you move this upward, it'll become brighter and darker. I always leave it really dark. I like my highlights not to be like super bright. I'm going to turn the shadows down. If you can tell, the shadows are becoming darker and lighter. I kind of like having them a little bit dark. I like seeing this become black. I think that's really stunning. And it's a cool contrast with the yellow and the blues, with it have that just extreme black here and its shirt right here. I always like to pop the clarity up, so then it's a little more fine detailed. And then I like being a little more vibrant, and I'll turn down the saturation a bit too. And then now I'm going to mess with the tone curve, which is mostly messing with the highlights, lights, darks, and shadows. And this also, to me, is very much like mess with it until where you find where you like it. And that's a lot of Lightroom too. And a lot of photo editing is just do it how, there's no really big preference of how you should do everything. It's more of a creative process of shoving in it. I hated that. It's so much of a creative process. Like, you put your photo in and you mess with it until where you feel like it's right and it's comfortable and it's that sweet spot. You're like, I found it. I found exactly where it needs to be. And that's kind of what photo editing is, and that's what I love about it. Next is the color. So this is where I was talking about the more fine details. So these are the individual colors, like red, orange, yellow, green, etc. And you can mess with their hues. So like red, well, orange would be like a really reddish color or really yellow color. So it's very much of like the middle is the sweet spot. Then you have like the really intense version of that color. So like green, or let's do blue. Like a really intense one would be purple, and then for like the really lighter version would be teal. So that's where you're kind of messing with it. Like I love orange. And I'm gonna kind of, there we go. Make those oranges a little much. And so I'm just kind of moving it, like this is more teal, as for this is more blue, which I like teal and orange. They complement each other really well. Like, you can tell in a lot of movie posters, they tend to do teal and orange. After hues, there's also saturation and luminance. So saturation is kind of pulling out more of that color. Just be cautious of, every so often, if you pull out too much of that color, there'll start being blotches in your photos, and that's just because the camera wasn't calibrated for that much saturation to be pulled out or that much color. So be cautious and worry of that. I am a pro at accidentally doing that all the time. There's also luminance. So luminance is also just making those colors brighter. So let's say if you want your blues to be lighter, you can absolutely do that. Last but not least, my favorite part is the eyes. And this is bizarre. Everyone who's a photographer thinks I'm weird, but like, just stay with me. So there's this little brush right here, right? And so when you go into Navigator, you can have it come closer and then go to their eye and fill it in. So what I'm gonna do is, I like making the eyes super sharp and colored, because I think the eyes are kind of like in film, like you're always supposed to light their eyes because it makes them feel like alive and like actually a human being. So it's really good to be able to like know how to do this and do this in your photos, and I promise you it will change the way you look and also make the model, whoever you're doing, like feel like a god. It looks completely different. I always do, Owen has pretty blue eyes. It just doesn't show up well with like the white balance I was using. And so what I did is I made the temperature go from the middle. You can make them super like brown or super blue, which I vibe with the blues with this photo. There you have it! That is how you edit a photo in Lightroom, or an Instagram-worthy photo in Lightroom. If you have any questions, comment below, and if you have any requests, I am more than happy to answer them or film them. And I hope you guys have a lovely week, and I will hopefully see you soon, or post another short film. Alright, bye!